So the objectives for Train the Trainer today is to give you guys the tools to go back and talk to your teams that are going to actually go into these classrooms, work on the activities, provide the structure for how we're going to do this, because ultimately that's our goal. Our ultimate goal is to get them excited about STEM. And then we're gonna go through the jet car activity kind of in a hybrid. We're not going to do the whole activity because we don't have the time, but it's good for us to do it here, for you to do it with your volunteers before you go in the classroom, because you're going to find out some of the challenges, and the kids are going to find out challenges, and them overcoming the challenges is really what makes it successful for them. It's not necessarily getting the car straight and to stop right on the line. It's overcoming those challenges together as teamwork. And there's other benefits to that too, which I'll keep talking about. So let me jump on to the key themes here. STEM-related careers is kind of how we tie this all together, how we give them kind of hope and give them a goal in their school careers. And this whole started with BEC looking at how the interest is lost at the grade school level in STEM, in science, technology, engineering, math, and they don't carry it on to high school. And now we have a shortage of people for these industries, and Oregon is a great place, and it's a great example. To, the first question I'd ask kids is, what's the largest company in Oregon? And we're at Barnes and Nike's right across the street, and they'll say Nike, and I'll say, no, it's not. It's not Nike. And eventually they'll get to Intel. They'll have some other guesses sometimes, but you have Intel, just one example of all the hundreds of industries they have an opportunity right here in the Northwest. So it's kind of awesome. My big thing and thing I've been talking to Elaine about, and Darren, is the teamwork aspect in our classrooms at Barnes. Now every classroom is going to be different, but the teamwork aspect where every person on the individual teams has a role, and the team can't be successful if not everybody's involved. The last thing is don't over-direct. And in the fourth graders with the ramps, if I had 50 pictures of my classes or all the classes that some of you have been in, you probably have 50 different ramps that they built, and all of them work in one way or another. It's really cool. It's really neat to see the ideas that they come up with, because they're not really tied into the box that some of us are once we get into the careers that we're in. One of the tools that we've used is the scientific method, and we can also tie that back into how they define success, and that's the value of the mistakes, because success isn't necessarily getting that marble right on the 16, if most of you know what that means, or getting the jet car to go straight. It's fixing the problems they have as they go along. I mean, we've all probably worked in small groups or worked with a team of people on a project or something, and the success for these kids is overcoming some of the challenges that they're going to have and coming up with these ideas to make a project that maybe isn't perfect, but is maybe a different idea on how to accomplish the goal. So value the mistakes was one thing that we talked about when we were talking about this training. And then be prepared. So the last one is pretty important, getting to know your teachers, getting to talk to them. If you got a chance to go in, and when they're having a planning meeting or something, just go in and talk to them about the program, what you're trying to do, what they've done, what they've taught in math and science, what you can, we went into one classroom last year and they had all the numbers up on the wall. Teachers have all these things in their classrooms that they put up on some of the topics that they're covering. Well, if you can tie it back to something that they've already talked about in school, you're going to have a better time holding their attention. So, I talked about do the activity as a group. Get your trainers together, like I said. Run through one of the activities. You don't have to do both. And then maybe you could talk a little bit about what's on the website and what isn't, and are
Yeah, so we our website, and I'll talk more about it as you're eating lunch too, but review the teacher guides on our website. So the way that the website will be broken up this year, because we're not doing NEM, it's just STEM focused, STEM Connect, is that we have resources, or we have a kind of a partnership page where we're going to celebrate our partners in their school that they're connected to. We have a tab and a resource for volunteers, where the volunteer tab is where you'll find all of your resources. So how to, what the links to go and complete your background checks before you go into the classroom. The activity guides that you'll be using to engage students in the classroom, some videos on STEM Connect careers, just things like that for you to have as a resource. Then there's a teacher or a school tab. Teachers also have their own activity guide, and in their activity guide, we've broken down the activities so that they connect to both the next generation science and Common Core standards. And these are important things for you to know when you go into the classroom, because we take up seat time. That's a huge, valuable asset for the school, right, who has to meet outcomes just like every other business in student achievements, right? So know how they connect to the standards, and then have, as Neil talked about, that discussion with your teacher that really is kind of deeper. And what do your students know about kinetic and potential energy? Is there a standard that you see that this activity ties to that you want me to talk about? Maybe that you're not comfortable talking about. Many of our elementary educators do not have degrees that are very rich in science and math. So they really are coming to that environment, relying on a TOSA, a teacher on special assignment. There's one per building, maybe sometimes, or one per district, to really get that science and math information from. So these are not always concepts that they feel very comfortable with, and you can provide support to them in that way too. But yeah, look at the teacher resources as well, because that's what we're pushing out to teachers, and it's good for you to know. And then we have a family resources tab that will really trying to engage families in STEM Connect this year, and get them to see the careers that you all are engaged in differently and as a possibility for their youth. So
the next piece is defining STEM for the 4th and 5th graders, and this is where I'm maybe get some feedback. But one thing that the first year that we did it, we had a PowerPoint presentation for the kids, and we didn't use that last year, but we got to talking about, I'm skipping down a little bit, but we got to talking about what they do in their everyday life that has to do with science, technology, engineering, and math. And one kind of overarching, everybody knew about it, thing was Minecraft, the game of Minecraft that they all play. It doesn't matter, boy or girl. I mean, we had one classroom that they all had, it was part of their curriculum. They had a book, everybody had a book on their desk about Minecraft, and you know, I didn't see that beforehand, and I got to that slide, and they all lifted up their books, they're like waving them in the air. And it's kind of been something we've used the last 2 years. But there's other things that the kids are doing out there. Talk to them a little bit about, they're already doing STEM. They're already doing some of this stuff. There's not a job career path where you're not using STEM in some way or another. I mean, even if it's just simple math, you know, if you got to keep a checkbook, you know, you're using math. Keep them thinking about that. You know, keep them, you know, if they don't, then they won't. It won't be an interest of theirs. And then tie it back to the community, the local industry. Like I said, you know, first thing I asked them is, what's the biggest company in Oregon? And we get to Intel, and inevitably, at least at Barnes, 1 or 2 parents work there or more, or they know somebody that works there. So part of this training is thinking back about what you do and how what you do relates to STEM and can relate to the students. So we got Darren's bringing around a sheet about what kind of STEM professional are you?
you're going to complete these worksheets right now, and just I encourage you to think, so when we're looking at two different things. When we do student outcomes, student measurement in this program, we're looking at student attitude and behavior toward math, science, and STEM-related careers. So if you're thinking about that when you're meeting as your teams, when you're getting together to decide how you'll talk about what it is that you do, those are the things that are most important. As we're up in front, talking in front of the classroom, it's really important to think about how everything that we do connects to STEM. I'm a social worker, right? Everybody would look at me and say, there's no way that you're a STEM professional, but I absolutely am, because I'm a researcher and I'm a data nerd. And there are so many ways that I connect, but if I don't know how to say that to a 4th and 5th grade classroom, they would just look at me and think, oh, you're that person who gives out food, or, that's kind of their image of social worker. And these worksheets are great for recruiting volunteers and for getting them involved, because everybody can do this. It doesn't just have to be the STEM-related people at your organizations. Okay, so why don't, we're going to break it up into teams, and again, the goal is just to talk about that process, filling out the worksheet, and what you thought about that, and what you think you can say to 4th and 5th graders about what it is that you do, and then give each other feedback. So what are decisions, what you talked about, what you found interesting, or if you want to share like some of the things that you just thought about, like talk to kids about?
All the math and technical skills he has in his job as HR, and all the soft skills like public speaking and psychology, and spelling, grammar, I have as a mechanical engineer.
I think it's interesting with all of our discussions, and you're not an engineer, that even if you're not going into STEM careers, you still need to be really familiar with STEM material, because you're going to be working with people in those careers, and you're going to have at least a fundamental understanding of the things that are going on, so you can help hire them or help lead them, or to really, you're going to be involved in it even if that's not your career, so it's still.
So we'll model what kind of engineer you are, but I want you to think about, and maybe when we get a chance to talk a little more about what icebreaker activities some of the folks that aren't brand new this year have done, give us some more tools, because that's ultimately what we want to do here today, is give everybody tools to go to the classroom.
Yeah, so like Neil said, that first visit is your 30 minutes to introduce yourselves and your company and STEM Connect to the classroom. We did break that visit up. That was one visit in the I guess the first full program year, the second year really of the program. But we are so engaged in feedback from our volunteers, teachers, and students, and the feedback that we got from building administrators and teachers was that first visit, if you did the introduction and the activity together, was just too much information for their students, and so that's why we broke it into two. But that first visit, you're just going and talking about what you do and how it relates to STEM. It's great if it can be competitive, and I think Neil's going to try to squash me, and he'll probably win. But it also just gets them, more engaged, and you become a real person, and then that icebreaker lets you know who they are. So this is us, and we're backstage.
So we walk in and introduce ourselves to all the kids. Do an introduction. And I'm Neil Petrock. I'm a civil engineer, so I design roads and water lines and sewer lines and other things like that. So if you got a drink from the water fountain this morning, you can thank me. So that's what I do, and that's why my job's really exciting.
Well, designing things like water fountains, that's kind of cool, but what I do is super cool. So I think I have the best job ever because I design things too. I design programs. So programs that help people. So whereas he's like building roads that you drive on to get places, whatever, who needs that, right? You can just fly. I get to know people and what they need and the things that are keeping them from being happy. And when I find out what it is that is keeping people from being happy, I design a program that helps that person to be happy. I design programs that come in and kind of take all those barriers out in front of you, like imagine a wall in front of you. My job is to remove that wall so you can get to the other side of it and be a happier person. So I think I have the coolest job ever.
So she thinks she makes you happy, but Let me tell you, if you walked into the bathroom and the toilet didn't flush, you'd be very unhappy. So,
I think it was someone like me who probably figured out that was a problem, that there wasn't a toilet that flushed, or that you didn't have, plumbing, and then created this idea, right? That I pull in people like Neil to help me solve the problems that I can to make people happy.
so we're just trying to model, but you can really get the kids engaged. I mean, I know AccuMed, you guys probably have a great time talking about some of the things you do with the kids. They're like, wow, some of the medical things that you can do, and everybody has something to kind of offer the kids or get them excited or start thinking about, I didn't even think of that as a career. I mean, I didn't even think of some of these things. Tell them how exciting your career is, how exciting being a STEM professional is, but also kind of getting down on their level. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is the jet car activity. So the jet car, when we took it into the classroom last year, we took an example in for the kids to see. And if I can get the internet later, I'll show you some of of what the kids came up with. But the instructions are pretty specific on how to build it, but then the kids can get creative on ballast, on where they place the axles. One set had it way out here, and one had it, and how that changes whether they can keep it go straight or not. If you do this upside down, those lines are going to be inside the car and not outside the car. So there's and getting the tube. Great job, by the way, intern, not getting any recognition of getting the tube through the hole, because that's a little bigger hole than a hole puncher is going to make. So we're going to let you guys run through the activity, kind of as your same groups, talk through building the car, and then come on up and take a chance and test it out and see if you can get it to go straight. One of the bigger challenges for the kids was just launching the car, and it's good to know that ahead of time. Yeah, one challenge you're all going to find, and probably all experienced, is everybody wants to watch everybody test their cars, and there's just not enough room sometimes in the classroom, and that can be up to the teacher how they organize their classroom or how they keep them. But they got to have, sometimes people are walking across the track as they're testing them, so that's going to be one of your challenges.
So I want to kind of walk through quickly what the connections are, just to reiterate that so we all know. So the first connection is the 30-minute introduction, where you're going to both introduce yourselves and your teams, if you have a team of volunteers, to the students, and you're also going to use some type of icebreaker that helps you understand them a little bit more or get to know them a little bit. That's a 30-minute visit. The second time that you go into the classroom, that's the canned or the structured activity, that's either 4th or 5th grade. We like that to be within a couple of weeks from your first visit to the classroom, just because there's memory there. When that happens consistently, I hear things from teachers like, my kids couldn't remember their name anymore, but they would say, oh, you should ask our engineer. So, it really does help with their memory. So then when you go back in for that visit, depending on which one you're doing, Marbles in Motion can be done successfully in an hour. That's what we hear back from our volunteers. The jet car, as you've all heard from each other today, is a little more clunky for students, just depending on who you're working with. So it's good to ask the teacher if you can have 90 minutes for that activity. It's really the best way to make sure that there are several iterations or tries, right, on the field when they're out testing them. And then the next time that you connect with students in the classroom, that's what we call the follow-up activity. So that really is dependent on each organization and each school. Some of our partners, like AccuMed, have a very detailed kind of follow-up activity that they do or that they've done previously that's specific to what they do with bones. And so they feel prepared to go in and talk to students about that. Other folks have asked the teacher, is there something that you'd like me to do? Maybe an activity that helps you meet the needs of what you need to instruct kids on this year that makes it real for them. and then the teacher has suggested it. And then still others have emailed me and said, Elaine, what should I do for a follow-up activity in the classroom? And then the fourth connection is a school community connection. And BEC will be working with your organizations and your schools this year to coordinate that community event. It's really important to us that as a whole, your organization, maybe people who don't feel comfortable in the classroom, or it could be the same folks who went into the classroom, have an opportunity to experience families at your school. Families are, the environment that our students live in, and it just really helps us to, and I say families because not all students have parents. And so when you go into a school community for an evening event, you get to see more into the lens of their life. You get to help that family do more boundary spanning when they see what you're doing, and it's no longer just the student coming home and talking about it, but they actually get to see it and maybe participate in it if you have an option to bring one of your activities. Next steps are your businesses, all of you, should go back and take this information that you've learned to do your volunteer training. So you're gonna go back to your organizations and schedule an event like this with your folks to teach them how to engage students in the classroom. If you're not quite there yet, if you don't have your volunteer recruitment and your numbers up, that's when you can reach out to us. We'll help you recruit volunteers. If you have people who are on the sidelines and don't know if they want to do this, call me because I will convince them that they want to do this. So after your on-site volunteer training, probably sometime within or somewhere within that time, we'll be sending out a registration link. So every year you do need to register, and it takes like 5 seconds. It really is your name and your email address. But it just helps us make sure that we have your current email address and get you back into our CRM system. Once you see that registration link come out, please fill it out so that we have you in the system. Teachers will be getting a like email that gets them registered in the system, and then we can start making your connections to your classrooms. Kits. You're gonna need some kits to do your volunteer training and also to go into the classroom. So those supplies are still coming in right now. We will assemble kit bags at BEC, and then we'll deliver them to your organizations. The Jet Car specifically comes in like the snack, like Ziploc bags, if you're familiar with those. The wheel assembly, everything comes in that, and then the chassis itself, all of that comes like on a cardstock. So you'll have 2 per sheet, but we'll portion it out for your schools and bring it out to you that way. The Marbles in Motion activity, if you were a volunteer last year, if you were a sponsor last year, you were supposed to have kept your marble mats, the yoga mats, and I think the marbles. So if you need more supplies for Marbles in Motion, please let me know, because we'll assume if you did it last year that you still have them. Once you get your registration link registered and your teacher is registered and you've been matched to your classroom, you'll get an email that tells you you've been matched, and you can go to our volunteer website and it will tell you like your teacher's name and email address. At that point, it's your responsibility to start reaching out to your teacher. And I encourage you to do that right away. If you're thinking, oh, I'm not going to contact my teacher because I can't get out there for 3 weeks, that's a mistake. You need to contact them right away because they are busy. They're really busy like you guys are, but they're getting hundreds of emails every day. The difference is that they're standing like this in front of a classroom for 6.5 hours a day providing instruction to students. So when they get back to their desks at the end of the day, in addition to curriculum planning and other things that they have to do, they have to answer their email, right? So who do you think is most important in their email inbox? Any guesses? Well, the principal, for sure. Parents are their primary, constituent next to their kids. And so they've got to respond to their parents. But on top of that, there is district and building information that comes to them, and they're expected to be responsive to that as well. They may not know your name at first. They may not know who you are. They heard about STEM Connect because Elaine visited, or their principal told them about it, but they don't remember. What you put in the subject line is really important, and I would just say be persistent. If you are not getting a response, it's okay to, do the whole mark as read and mark as received thing on the inbox. I try not to do that because that feels a bit creepy to me sometimes when I'm like, oh, I know you read it, so now you got to respond to me. But it is good to know if they're getting the email or not. So I would say be consistent. But if you cannot reach your teacher, don't give up. call me. I will go out to the school and I will sit in the office until I see the whites of their eyes and get them scheduled with your first visit. I've done it before. The email that you get to me after it happens has subject line proof of life. I found your teacher. And then once I'm able to do that, it just flows. I mean, they really want you in the classroom. So the suggested timeline, I actually can't get online because that was my whole idea. The timeline has changed. That'll come out to you in some program communication email from me. We are suggesting you try to connect in November, December at the latest, before the winter break, for your 30-minute activity and then the 30-minute introduction and then the hour-long activity or 90-minute activity. And then that your follow-up visit would come after the winter break, sometime before spring break. So as Neil mentioned, there's this great thing that we all know about called testing, right, in our school communities. Our schools have switched to a testing platform. This is their second year, called SBAC. That's the Smarter Balanced Assessment. And it may be smarter balanced, but it's new to them, and it's really difficult to get kids through in the masses. And so there's a lot of anxiety that comes around that for students and for teachers. And so it's really not always the best time to be in the school community. It is a great time, if you have the resources and you want to buy coffee for all your 4th grade teachers or your 5th grade teachers, to make sure the teachers know that you care about them as well, because they are working, round the clock. Conferences for teachers at that time also probably take up about, I don't know, how many, your wife works in a school?
3 of their days, but the time it takes for teachers
to prepare the report cards, and so just be aware of that on the whole timing aspect. And then the school-wide event, that can be any time through the calendar year. And like I said, I'll be working with your schools and the organizations to schedule that. You'll have lots of information about that.